Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's program. Thank you for coming on this beautiful Sunday night. I want to thank everybody for coming. Rabbi Russell, we're in our fifth year over here, believe it or not. And Russell is I want to say one of the founders of the program. So really appreciate him coming back on, and we're going to cover a lot with Hashem. Again, first thanking all the people for every week for promoting us, for posting it, letting people know about it. I saw this flyer was all over the place. If people don't know, this flyer was translated in many different languages. So everybody here from all over the world, thank you for joining us. Again, it's a Sichas Chaverim, place to talk through a lot of things that we deal with. Try to get some clarity. I'm sure hopefully tonight that will be the case. If anybody wants to join the WhatsApp chats, please WhatsApp me at 732-314-1710. Send you the community chat links. You can go to menachembernfeld.com and sign up over there. We'll also put on the post on the chats the links for these different programs. For all the people that are watching us on YouTube, you can click on the subscribe button. Every week you could upload we upload the videos. You could watch them on YouTube. You can click on the like button. So Menachem posts all the videos with Shem Monday 2:34 a.m. Everybody gets to watch it, and Shem should be a big thing for Klal Yisrael. People should keep on growing with it. And I want to thank first also the advertising sponsor Lake Scoop, Eli Nara for Five Town Central, and Chayla Kaufman for JCN for promoting us on all the Jewish programs. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night, the past almost 5 years, I don't know where you've been, at 9:30 on this Zoom ID, we have different therapists, different Rabbanim, different topics, and we have a lot of big programs coming up, starting with tonight. Next week, June 2nd, I'm working on finalizing. I don't want to announce it yet, but next Shem, it's going to be a very special program. So please join us. I can't say it yet because certain details are not confirmed, but Shem will be very powerful and let people know about it. And tonight's share 186. We're going to start off first going to our host, Coach. Should we go to you, Menachem, first? Yeah, we'll go to you first. Menachem is going to give a little opening, and then we'll get into tonight's share. Menachem.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. To another Let's Get Real with Coach Menachem Baruch Hashem with a lot of Siyata D'Shmaya. Hope everybody had a nice Lag B'Omer, wherever they managed to get to. And we should all hope and gepoiled the Yeshias and the Refias and all the things that we need. It's a privilege and a supposed to have Rabbi Russell with us tonight. It's not the first time, but the conversation that we're going to have tonight is something that we've wanted to have already a while, and Baruch Hashem, here we are, and hopefully with a lot of Siyata D'Shmaya, we can start the conversation. We had Rabbi Sheis Taub a few weeks ago discussing that before Mashiach comes, the world needs a little bit of healing, and everybody wants to be good, everybody's trying to do their best, and not always does it look so nice. A lot of times healing, you open a can of worms, and it doesn't look so beautiful. You have to deal with things that you don't want to, and then kids, parents. It sometimes it's a struggle and it's not easy, but we're here, we're trying our best, and stuff come up, whether it's emotions, memories, and tonight we're going to be discussing a little bit we're going to continue our journey with the healing journey, and talking about emotions, triggers. And again, we have, Baruch Hashem, people that deal with these things and they can give it over. But just before we start, I'm thinking many times you can go to a speech or you could listen to a concept, and while you are listening to it, it makes so much sense. And you're thinking to yourself, this is what I have to do. And amidst Hashem, I'm going to try this, try that. And for some reason, when we get back home, you're back into the situation. It just doesn't work. You just blow up. And you're thinking, and then you feel guilty that, I wanted to do something different, and it's not working. You try again, and you don't know what has to happen. So tonight we're gonna have the discussion, and we're gonna talk about it. But many times I tell people, come with an open mind. It doesn't mean it's going to work after the first time. We pick up ideas. We try to see where it's applicable for us, what's negaya, what's not. And it does take time till we realize, where am I? Where's my child? Where's my parents? Where am I in this? We got a lot of emails, and I must say that, before we start, just to spend a moment of silence. There are many, many people out there that are really, really struggling. And I'm sure everybody knows someone, but it's a real struggle, not just somebody's, in school, my kid. These are real heavy, heavy questions. I don't know if we'll be able to get to these questions tonight, but we're going to start the conversation. And the Mitzvah Hashem, my tefillah is that Hashem should help us, that we should be there for what Hashem wants us, whether it's for us, for our kids, talking about chinuch. But these concepts are also not only negaya for chinuch. These concepts are whether it's shalom bayis. It can be at work, how to deal with other people, to understand other people. So we should be able to, pick up the concepts, understand, and apply it. And this should help us, on this healing journey. So Shkoyach Rabbi Russell for being with us tonight, and we should have a lot of siyata d'shmaya and Mitzvah Hashem.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Menachem, for that beautiful opening. Okay, let's get into tonight's program. We have a lot to discuss, and right, Malacha Harbe, right, Vazman Koitzer, it was a short time. Really, there's a lot to get into, so let's get into it. Number one, I'm going to first go to tonight's sponsor. Tonight's sponsor is Fresh Start. Fresh Start is Yochanan Palter, very close to Rabbi Shimon Russell, I'm very close with myself, and we're going to give him the floor to speak a little bit. Yochanan, can I give a little background on what Fresh Start has to do with Rabbi Russell? The whole
Absolutely, please.
Rabbi Russell, can I give the little background? Is that okay?
Sure.
So my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Fresh Start, is a self-healing program that you go for a week and you get this deep, intense therapy. It's created because as people that deal with struggling kids and they start realizing that some of the issues a little bit is coming from their past and their struggles throughout the thing, Rabbi Russell together with Rabbi Yochanan Palter felt that it would be important to give parents also a way to heal some of their traumas, to get deep in there, because these sugyas and these parshas, however you say that in English, bring out a lot of the traumas in the people themselves, and then they go into this deep journey of trying to heal themselves, and they start realizing that Rabbi Yochanan does the surgery. So Rabbi Yochanan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ushi. Thank you, Coach Menachem. As many of you may know, Rabbi Russell, as Ushi mentioned, is a co-founder and acts as the Yoshev Rosh at Fresh Start, and it's an honor to sponsor the shir tonight. Rabbi Russell, I'll leave it up to you during your speech to clarify a little bit about what she said. But a little bit about Fresh Start. Our past experiences can often lead to self-defeating behaviors and relationship challenges, parenting struggles, and more. Fresh Start is focused on helping members of the frum community understand the connection between our past and our present. Our flagship program, Fresh Start Retreat, is a 7-day intensive retreat helping participants understand their past to create a better future. The program is designed for men and women who want to understand, process, and heal from past wounds and reconnect with their authentic self. The Fresh Start Retreat is the first of its kind in the Torah world, developed under the guidance and leadership of a team of world-renowned trauma experts, doctors, and rabbanim to combine proven principles with authentic Torah values. We have the schus of being endorsed by numerous gedolim and rabbanim, including the Stolner Rebbe, the Viana Rebbe, Rabbi Lupiansky, and many other rabbanim around the country and around the world that have sent members of their kehillah to our program. If you or someone you know or a loved one is struggling with unresolved childhood trauma, definitely reach out to us. You can learn more about us at jewishfreshstart.com, or you can call us at 248-301-9997. Thank you again for the opportunity to sponsor. And with that being said, Rabbi Russell, I know we all anxiously await to hear your divrei chizuk and sage advice.
Okay, Vivaldik, let's get into it. I'm not going to read Rabbi Russell's bio if you don't know it. And just sign off the program now. And I'm going to give a little pre-opening, if that's okay, Rabbi Russell, okay?
Okay, sure.
Russell will clarify weiter because he knows how to clarify better. We're here really to talk about a very big subject. It's called crisis chinuch. Not everybody understands what that means. It takes many, I don't want to use the word years, but it takes a lot to really understand it. And there's a logical part of it, and there's the emotional part of it, which gets complicated. And we spoke with Rabbi Russell a little bit before the share today, and we realized that it's such a big sugya and such a big parsha to talk about, that everybody should understand we're going to try to do it in little pieces. There'll be multiple shiurim, multiple parts of this program, because it'll be impossible to encapsulate that in 1, 2, 3 hour program. It's just not possible. So we're going to try to really super focus on certain parts of it. And like Rabbi Russell will say soon, he'll clarify exactly what I mean. But when we do go to questions, we're not going into personal questions, and we're not going into any questions really besides the topics we're going to be talking about tonight. So if anybody has a question on what Rabbi Russell says tonight, specifically ask on that and we can get more clarity on it, but nothing to do with anything else, because as we're saying, we're trying to build, like I'm telling you something about an airplane, you don't know what it is, right? And I'm trying to describe you first what an airplane is, start asking questions about the engine, wouldn't make any sense. So that's my opening. Rabbi Russell, the floor is yours.
Fine. Okay. Thank you, Osha. I appreciate it. I do appreciate being back here again. Every time I've been here, I see the feedback is phenomenal. The way you're reaching into Klal Yisrael with subjects and issues that really need teasing out and talking more about. So, kol hakavod to you guys for doing this program. I came to do this particular, as you well know, this subject in crisis chinuch with a little trepidation. Here's my concern. As you just said, to really understand crisis chinuch properly, it's not going to happen tonight. The best we can hope for tonight is that we'll have a beginning of an understanding of what this subject is about, and we will develop it more and more and more. When I originally came up with the name crisis chinuch, I did it specifically to differentiate from regular chinuch. It kind of drove me crazy over the years, many years ago, when we started talking about this. The people, speakers, and magazine articles would talk about chinuch and interleave issues and hadracha that was nagea to regular chinuch with instruction, advice, and guidance that was nagea to crisis chinuch. And it was very, very confusing. Which one are we talking about? What is the subject matter? Because although a lot of the ideas that are nagea to crisis chinuch might be and could be sometimes, pulled into regular chinuch with regular children, the difference is in crisis chinuch, you have to do this. The things we're going to come to understand over the course of these different workshops, the ideas have to be done if we're going to reach the kids who are seriously struggling. And when I say seriously struggling, we all know what that means. The ones who are regular chinuch is simply not working, and we're losing our relationship with our kids. So then we come on to these notions of crisis chinuch. But to understand it properly, you have to start with an anchor of what is regular chinuch, like how's it meant to look? Otherwise it makes no sense. So I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm going to talk initially about regular normative chinuch, because by understanding how chinuch should work, how parenting should work to bring up our kids in a more or less healthy way, we can begin to get a better feel for what went wrong, like what happened to them, why are they struggling? And so therefore we can get a better sense of what is exactly it is we have to do to help repair that damage and help our kids become the incredible people they're meant to be, because every one of them is meant to be something special, and it's our job to try and help them do that. So when I start with regular chinuch, I don't want to misunderstand here. I'm not talking tonight, crisis chinuch is not about regular chinuch. It's about how to help those kids who are seriously struggling. And to understand this properly, can I really recommend, if anyone needs the fast, move through this, and I desperately need to understand this now, go on to the Kesher Nafshi website, www.keshenafshi.org. Go on to the Kesher Nafshi. It's hosted by Torah Anytime. Go on to the Kesher Nafshi website and watch all the drashas. Watch them and understand them and learn them, deeply learn them, and understand what this is all about. We're going to start this and we're going to do it slowly, deliberately, to make sure that we understand what we're doing and that we can bring out this sugya of Christ's Chinuch in a way that we'll know exactly where yes to apply it and when we don't need to apply it. What is it about? But really it's important that we internalize why it works. People come to me frequently and they're looking for tools and tricks for how to fix my kids. And quite honestly, it almost never works well. Never works. Looking for tools and tricks doesn't do it. What we really need to do is get inside the subject matter itself, understand it very, very deeply, and then it comes out of us in a very different fashion. So again, I want to be clear. Although I'm going to start off talking about regular chinuch, the real subject is crisis chinuch. Regular chinuch here is only in order to understand what should happen, and then we can understand what went wrong, and then it'll make more sense to us when we begin to talk about the actual techniques of crisis chinuch and why it works. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, it's beautiful.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's start off, Rabbi Russell. Before we get into it, we're going to start with questions. We want to try to really clarify it. We're going to take a poll from everybody here tonight before we start this whole mega series of programs, just to get everybody's feelings and thoughts, and then we'll jump into the questions, okay?
But I'm going to get some water while you're doing that. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to ask everybody 2 questions, and everybody answers to the best of your ability. Just interesting questions. I want to see what everybody has to say. Here we go. First question, okay? What do you think crisis chinuch means? 4 possible answers. Buying them huge presents and showing them that you'll do anything and everything, no matter the cost. Number 2, giving your child whatever they claim they need to keep them calm and happy. Option 3, giving your child all the resources possible, including therapists, tutors, mentors, whatever the kid needs to make sure that he gets better. Or option 4, adjusting your parenting to the needs of the child. Those are the 4 possible answers. Second question. When do you think a child falls into the criteria of needing crisis chinuch? 4 options. Number 1, when they are out of school. Number 2, when they're not keeping Shabbos and other related mitzvahs. Number 3, when they are struggling in the curriculum of school. Or number 4, anytime you see a child with a struggle. Okay, those are the 2 questions. Everybody answer. I'll give you 30 seconds. Rabbi Russell, you see the 2 questions?
I sure do.
Okay. We're getting warmed up here. We're just going to understand where everybody is. We'll take it from there. By the way, there's I'll be quiet.
Okay, I got it. I see it.
Okay. I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. Rabbi Russell, if you want to comment after we share the results, nobody sees it yet. The answers yet. If you want to comment, we could, or we'll jump into the beginning of the understanding what everything is.
Okay.
Let me share the answers. Okay. So number 1, what do you think crisis chinuch means? 1% of people thinks buying them huge presents, showing them that you'll do anything and everything for them, no matter the cost, is 1%. 3% of people think giving your child whatever they claim they need and keep them calm and happy. 12% of people said giving your child all the resources possible, therapists, tutors, mentors. And 86% of people adjusting your parenting to the needs of the child. Russell, want to comment on that? Should we go to the next one?
Okay, go to the next one, then we'll talk. Okay.
When do you think a child falls into the criteria of needing crisis chinuch? 5% say when they're out of school. 24% when they're not keeping Shabbos and other related mitzvahs. 5% when they're struggling in school. 66% of people here think that you need to use crisis chinuch anytime you see a child with any struggle.
Okay, so look, let's. It's almost unfortunate you did this poll. I'll be honest, although maybe it'll change the whole tone of the evening. I don't know. The crisis chinuch was created and is designed in an absolute must when you've lost your relationship with your kid. When you see that what you're trying to do to get your child to comply. Because as parents, what we're trying to do always is take our children and teach them about life. Teach them how to conduct themselves and live in this world. So when you've lost that relationship with your child, where you can't encourage them or get them to do things they ought to be doing, or stop them from doing things they shouldn't be doing without destroying your relationship with them. That's really the key in a very simple nutshell. If you can't We all are standing up to our children when they're little children, trying to get them to do things frequently that they don't want to do, or stop them from doing things that they do want to do. And if we can do that, and using our seichel, and we can do that without ruining our relationship with our children, you don't need crisis chinuch. That's called chinuch. That's part of what chinuch is, installing in our children, or parenting, installing in our children good values and good behavior in life, and keeping them away from things that will be destructive to their lives, that will hurt them. If you can do that without hurting your relationship, and I don't mean hurting your relationship tonight where they go to bed moody and they're all upset with you and angry with you. If they wake up tomorrow morning and your relationship is fine, well, you don't need crisis chinuch. You absolutely need crisis chinuch. If you realize that when you try to get your children to conform to the norms and behaviors of life that you as a parent believe are healthy and good for them, you try to get them to conform by either getting them to conduct themselves, do things, positive things, in a way that you think is right, things they need to be doing, and or stop them from doing things that are destructive and inappropriate. And in trying to do that, you realize you've lost a relationship, it's slipping away. Your kid is cutting off from you, and not just not conforming or listening to you anymore, but they're simply disappearing from their relationship with you. They're isolating, they're disappearing from the table, they're not interested. They go to bed moody, but they wake up moody, and they wake up disconnected from you. Well, the chances are, if you're losing your relationship with your child, then you need crisis chinuch. And all the rest of it are details that, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Sometimes, it's this issue or sometimes it's that issue. But it's much more about, do I have any more a relationship with my child where I can influence their behavior in a positive way, or I can help them not do things that I feel are inappropriate for them, and I can do that without losing my relationship with them. And again, I want to repeat, that doesn't mean where they're upset with you tonight, because they're often going to be upset with us. We as parents stand up to our children, as we should, and we should give them the parameters of life. And sometimes the kids don't like that, and they're upset and they're moody. It hurts them. Even if we do it in the right way, they're still upset and moody because we're restricting their behavior. No one likes being told what to do. Nobody. So, Mela, if we're standing up to them and we don't lose our relationship with them, they're just upset. But tomorrow, when we see them the next day, they're fine. Everything's fine. We're back with. That's called parenting. That's what parenting is. We're not meant to be afraid of our kids. We're meant to be able to stand up to them firmly and lovingly and help guide them to conduct themselves in a healthy way. But if we realize in that process, and that's really what we're going to be talking about, we've lost the relationship with the kids. They're not listening to us anymore. They've disconnected from us. Like I said, they're isolating, they're forever angry, they're not interested, they're disrespectful. And we see that our relationship with them is lost, or at least we're losing it. It's slipping away. Chances are you need to start doing crisis chinuch so that you don't lose your child. I hope does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think we're gonna go start from the top. Let's go from the top. We're gonna get right into it, okay?
Okay, so let me see if I can.
Let me start, Rabbi Russell, with a question, okay?
One? Okay, fine.
Let's start with a question. Very simple question. Rabbi Russell, I have a simple question I want to understand. Somebody said, we talked about what's wrong with this and what we shouldn't do in parenting, we shouldn't do that. Can you describe what is normal, healthy parenting looks like? Period.
Sure. We're on the same page, because that's really what I think we know. That's exactly what I think we need. First of all, although I've said this on multiple platforms, and I talk about this, I hardly ever talk about parenting without starting with this. But I think it's really crucial that we chazal this again and again and again, and we get this deep into our hearts. So let's start with a very simple idea. There's a pasuk in Yeshayahu Memhei. Pasuk says, "Lo so bara l'sheves yitzara." Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world for people to live in it, to fill the world with people, with citizens of the world. And what I've come a rise for this, but it's not time to go into it right now. But the idea behind there's a mitzvah, Imperia Verivia, we have a mitzvah to bring children and populate the world. Everyone has a mitzvah to bring children into this world. Part of the mitzvah is the physical mitzvah of bringing children into the world, and part of the mitzvah is to bring in children, and I think the best way to understand it, who will populate the world, citizens of the world, who will live lives and be productive and serve Hashem, that these people are healthy in body and healthy in mind, they're happy, they're capable of self-love, and they're capable of loving others. This will be the mitzvah l'shevet Yisrael, to bring citizens of the world. There's riots for it, again, it's not for now, but it's really connected to Bavta together, but it's really to bring in children who are healthy in body and mind. This is a parental mandate, happy as human beings, capable of self-love and capable of loving others. This is our primary job. Alongside this job of bringing up kids who are these happy, loving human beings, and that's what Hashem wanted, us to fill the world with such people. Alongside that, we, as Torah Yidden, we have a job to be mechanech in mitzvahs too. That means to install mitzvahs. What does it mean? It means we should educate the parameters of mitzvahs to our children, teach them what mitzvahs are, and hopefully inspire them to install or internalize those mitzvahs inside themselves where they want to do them. These are the two mitzvahs that stand side by side. The Shevis Yitzhara, bringing up a healthy, happy, loving human being. And at the same time, we have to teach them what the parameters of all mitzvahs are. That's our mitzvahs chinuch. Teach them mitzvahs and teach it to them in a way that's so inspirational that they should want to internalize those mitzvahs inside themselves. These two mitzvahs we do, and I think we all know this kind of, without having it spelt out, we know this is what we're meant to be doing. The problems begin when sometimes those two mitzvahs can be in conflict. Those two obligations on us are in conflict. We have in the early years of childhood, we have this obligation to try and bring up our children to be healthy, happy, loving human beings. At the same time, we have this mitzvah to install mitzvahs, to teach them about the parameters of mitzvahs, and to try and encourage them to do the mitzvahs and keep Torah mitzvahs. Very occasionally, those two are in conflict. They're in conflict. Now what do we do? Which one takes precedence when they're in conflict? We've got little kids, right now, let's say, for example, 0 to 6, even pre-mitzvah chinuch, but I would say through till bar mitzvah. We have little children, and we want to get them to do mitzvahs, negelbasa, put on your tzitzis, dress properly, whatever it is we're trying to get them to do. At the same time, we have mitzvah l'shevis Yisara, which means in normative childhood development, bring up a healthy, happy child. The obligation, the job, is to work out how to do the two seamlessly together. And if there seems to be a conflict, and occasionally certain children come back to this world with their struggles and issues, or their personality is a challenging personality, and or they've been through various problems and struggles that we're not aware of, and it's very hard for them, and they start resisting, for example, doing the Torah mitzvahs part, they struggle with it. So when there's a conflict between the two, what we have to lean towards is always know you cannot compromise the Shevis Yitzhara. You cannot compromise that. I have to work out how do we help them do the mitzvahs and do Torah mitzvahs without losing the ability to help our children feel healthy in body and mind, happy, capable of self-love and loving others. And they only have that if they have this deep relationship with us. So there begins a conflict very often when we're trying desperately to get them to conform to the mitzvahs, to Torah, the things we would like them to be doing. And meanwhile, we're compromising our relationship with our children, chas v'shalom, we can compromise that and lose the ability to help bring them up as healthy people. when and if there could be a conflict between the two, we always err on the side of the Shevet Tzara first and work around how do we help them embrace the mitzvahs, but not just forcing them against their will, which could unfortunately lose our relationship with our children. That's where crisis chinuch begins to unfold. Normative chinuch, we do both, and they work seamlessly. They just work fine. We bring them up to be healthy, happy kids, and at the same time we help them install mitzvahs into our children, and it all works seamlessly. It works just fine. When we begin to need crisis chinuch and need to be thinking about it, it's where we see it's not working. And for some reason, unfortunately, the attempt and effort to install mitzvahs is actually distancing our kids from us and causing them to resist us and fight with us where we can't bring them up as a healthy child in the way they should be. Is this making sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so.
I just have a quick question. The question
Yeah.
is, for those, I'm just thinking, those who don't have Torah and mitzvahs, let's say the world out there, I'm sure they also struggle with these ideas.
Oh, it would be the same thing with Menachem in anything we're trying to get our kids to do. I'm just mentioning it in terms of Torah mitzvahs because that's our domain here. But it's true with anything. If we're trying to push our children to either do things they don't want to do or stop them doing things they do want to do, and compromising our relationship with our children and the ability to bring them up as healthy people, we always have to err on the side of healthiness and work out how to, that's the priority. It's not that we give up on trying to, get them to do things they shouldn't do, that we want them to do, or stop them doing things they shouldn't do. We don't give up on it, chas v'shalom, but we do it in a way that never compromises this. In the old days, I'll give you an example. Years ago, in the old days, almost everything up until 50 years ago was resolved with svei patch, with, bam, bam, that's it. We can fix every problem. What do you mean the kids aren't going to listen? Of course they're going to listen. And you're going to make them listen, and they're going to do
different versions, Rabbi Russell. There was the one patch, the two patch. There was the
Yeah,
more
I'm saying in the old, I'm not making fun of it. That's the way the world was.
Yeah.
The truth is, we should really make hakdama to this entire subject. If someone listening doesn't understand or accept that the world has changed, well then there's almost nothing we can do to help them with their children.
That brings up the question. I mean, people ask this question all the time. Why 20, 30, 40 years ago, we were raised in that generation, we got rules, it was strong, yes, it wasn't geschmack.
Absolutely.
So why are we going with this whole new theory of love and blah, 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 blah?
Yeah, okay, so look, that's a whole different share. I think you and I have talked about that in the past. I think we even did a program about it. Again, I just want to acknowledge the reality. Almost all intelligent, thoughtful people realize that the nature of the world has changed. The nature of children worldwide. There's nothing to do with the Jewish world. What's happened in the world around us, unfortunately, seeps in. There's no ghetto walls to protect us anymore. As strong as we want and we should and we must shield ourselves from the influence of the outside world, from their secular values and concepts, their treif ideas. The fact is we can't completely shield ourselves. And slowly but surely, the world has changed. And the world of children has very, very much changed to a world where they no longer can handle the most, put it this way, some can, of course, and almost all children can handle careful, loving, firm discipline. Almost all kids can handle it, of course. However, the world of children has changed, where we see that they quickly move towards independence and towards, their own desire to be who they are, where we see that the svei patch, the two patch world didn't work. Another way of looking at that is in the world that was up until, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it started really changing. And certainly recently it's changing more rapidly. Almost all parenting or chinuch was, when you had to stop your child doing something they don't want to do, which is really what discipline is all about. You're stopping them doing something they want to do, or you're getting them to do something they don't want to do. So in the old days, you did it by withdrawing love and showing upsetness. Like you're mad with them, upset with them, angry with them, and you withdraw your love from them. And the children didn't want to lose the love of their parents, and they certainly didn't want to receive the tzvei or the angry look from their parents. So we withdrew love, and we showed the frustration and anger, and the kids got like scared of that, and they would still too, and they would cooperate, and that was used as the sort of the underlying, 1, 2, 3 quick way to get kids to cooperate, and it worked for centuries. That's the way it always. That's the way it worked. In recent times, over the last 20, 30 years, the entire world has been shifting away from that. And it's reached a place not where, chas v'shalom, we give up on discipline, we give up on trying to be madrich our children to do the right thing, and we try and stop them doing the wrong thing. That's crazy. That's crazy to give that up, to be scared of our kids and frightened of them, that they're going to go off the derech if we like stand up to them and try and in any way influence their behavior. That's anarchy. That's crazy. That's destroying a whole entire world of people. That's terribly, terribly destructive. The beauty of what we're going to be talking about, and again, I really feel bad because this is going to take us many, many sessions to get to it, to do it properly. If I would just say, here's the answer, here's what you do. I could tell you right now, in literally 3 minutes, here's what you do in crisis chinuch. But to be able to internalize it and do it properly, it has to come from within. It has to come from the kishkas of a person as a natural, this is how I see the nature of kids. Because when I stand up to them in this generation, instead of withdrawing love and showing this frustrated, angry look, which by the way still works for many kids, in fact it probably works at times for all children, on lighter inyanim, I imagine all children, even in this day and age, that will work more or less with most of the children. However, as the pushback of the kids gets harder and stronger and they get older, parents quickly discover that it doesn't work. So it really, what we've moved to in this generation, when they start disconnecting from a relationship with us, we've actually come to the reverse, where we show more love, we withdraw the anger, while at the same time doing the firm discipline they need. We've actually turned it the other way around, so that we want the attachment. So let me see if I can explain it like this. Okay, let's move. Let me move on and show another way. We mentioned the Shevis Yitzhar, that we want to bring up healthy children. So let's have a look another way of how we bring up healthy children. So there are 3 distinct stages. This is again normative parenting. There are 3 distinct stages of childhood development that in broad brushstrokes we can understand this should, when done, and I think most intelligent, normal parents may not realize this is what they're doing, but in fact this is what they're doing. I'm just going to give the Gedarim so we can get clarity and see it so much clearer. See, the first thing we do, 0 to 2, is unconditional love. That's really what we're meant to be doing. And that's so incredibly crucial. I don't think people realize, how important it is in childhood development that we start off with the 0 to 2 unconditional love. By the way, people ask me, that doesn't mean at 2 we stop loving our kids. It means all we do, 0 to 2, is unconditional love. We should continue that for the rest of their lives. They should feel that. However, 0 to 2, we're doing unconditional love. That means whatever they do, whatever pushback a baby, a child does to make our lives difficult or to fight with us about normal, parenting, childhood stuff, whatever they do, we're meant to react if we can. This is idealized. In other words, I don't want people to be tzbrachim. If you didn't do this, we'll start now. We can make up for it. And in fact, a lot of what crisis chinuch is making up for the damage that happens when we didn't do this properly. So, we can always repair it if we can, later on. But what we're trying to do, 0 to 2 is unconditional love. That means whatever they do, if you're sitting with your baby, and let's say your baby's colicky, and you're holding your baby at night, and you're exhausted, and you got to go to work tomorrow, and it's extremely, extremely, extremely frustrating, and you're not getting a lot of sleep. When you're holding that baby, and you're rocking that baby, and trying to soothe that baby, you're actually, and I want people to understand this, you're installing in their mind, in their brain development, you're installing in them that they are cared for and loved. They're in pain. They don't know why they're hurting. They're colicky. And something inside them is in tremendous, tremendous pain. And they're crying out because they're hurting. Whether it's gas bubbles or whatever it is inside them, they're hurting inside and they're crying and crying. When we soothe them gently, we're actually programming our children to believe and feel. Again, it's not a conscious intellectual belief, it's a programmed into their nervous system, into their brain, that you're loved and we're here for you and we're trying to help you. We're your parents and we're trying to help you with life. So we're actually programming them to trust us. You know, and very often you can imagine the opposite if while they're colicky and we're soothing them, of course, it can be exceedingly, exceedingly frustrating. And instead of gently and lovingly rocking and soothing them, we're actually angry, frustrated, tense, frightened, exhausted. If we do that too often, then we program into our children, you know, again, unintentionally, that it's not so safe and they can't trust us so much. And we're installing in them a lack of safety inside them. In a similar vein, let's say you're feeding your child in the morning, you're rushing off to work, and you're sitting there with your baby and feeding them Cheerios. You sit there in the high chair, and you're sitting next to them and feeding them Cheerios. They're sitting in their you know, a year old or whatever it is, and someone makes a noise behind you, and you turn around to see what's going on. And as you turn around to see what's going on, the child takes the entire bowl of Cheerios and throws it on your head. And you get soaked with a mixture of milk and Cheerios, right? Now, that's not a pleasant experience for anybody. But it's also an opportunity to show unconditional love. A child is not a bad person who did a bad act. They're a child, they're a baby, and they threw it on you. So imagine the difference in our reaction. If obviously we're a human being and it's, oh no, you know, you're going to react in a way that's, you know, it's disappointing. I just got covered in Cheerios and I was ready to go to work and dressed, and now I'm late and I got to rush. But imagine the difference when we turn that moment into laughter, and we turn it into, oh, you know, in a funny moment, and you laugh about it with the child, and you soothe them, and you get another bowl, and you go change, and you clean up, and you give them some more Cheerios. Or if you get frustrated and upset and angry and upset with whoever's behind you who distracted you, and there's kolos and brakim about these Cheerios that just got thrown on you, yet again, what we're not doing is installing in our children unconditional love. Basically, whatever they're doing in those early years, 0 to 2, where they can really make our lives very difficult and challenging with the food, with the eating, you know, all sorts of things that they do and get up to that disrupts our lives and makes our lives really, really challenging at times. If we would understand that really that's our opportunity to give our kids unconditional love. That's a time to program them that they're safe with us. On the contrary, if we would understand that every time they do something that really impacts our lives and can make our life difficult or harder or frustrating, if we were able to understand that that's the very moment when we work through that problem in a loving and kind way, where we always make sure our children feel unconditionally loved. Like, you know, I always give the example, if you painted the living room Finally, the living room got painted, and suddenly you're in the kitchen and you hear Kodesh and Brocken, you hear something going on in the living room, and you discover that the freshly painted wall is now decorated by your 18-month-old toddler who got hold of a magic marker and started drawing pictures on this freshly painted wall. We could either get angry and frustrated, who left the marker? Screaming and yelling and running around the house, trying to find out who left out the marker, and you can't do that, and look what happened, and we're all angry and frustrated. Or we take out the camera, and we take pictures of it, which I always say is very good for the Sheva Brachos, later on for the same child, and we'll all have a good laugh about it. But if we would understand it's an opportunity, of course we should take the marker away, and of course we should try and explain to the child, it's not okay. But the child's not bad. They did nothing really wrong. They're not a bad child. And what we have to communicate to the child at that moment is it's cute, it's funny, okay, it happened. But our affect, our mood, our emotions is always one of love, is always showing the child that whatever you did, don't want you're 0 to 2. You have no control. We understand that. And therefore, everything you do that may make our lives difficult, challenge our lives, our response to you that the child feels from our facial expression, our body language, from the things we say and how we react is completely loving. Whatever we do, is that clear? Does that make sense?
Yes, very clear.
Wait. Rabbi Russell, the way you say it is amazing. I'm sitting here and I'm relaxed and you're putting it down. Mamish mit Geschmack. But in a way, I'm thinking this is sounds like Malachim. Like when this happens, either people have a balance, sometimes it depends on
Russell,
them.
on Father's Day, the picture that the girl takes the knife and writes, "I love you, Daddy," on the car.
Yeah, exactly.
On a brand new car.
Look, if it's, again, we're talking about number, let me make a couple of caveats. That's why I said we have to go slow. Without understanding this, it's just not going to work. First of all, no one does this properly all the time. It's impossible. And we're not malachim, we're human beings. But if overall, most of what we do conforms with what I'm saying, your child will feel unconditionally loved. Of course they will. Menachem, does that make sense?
See, it's okay to be human. It's okay to sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. Please listen, do this. Keep pushing back when I do this, because what I'm describing is idealized. And obviously we understand there's no human being ever did it perfectly or properly, and it's not necessary. But if the kid overall, your child feels that that's really your response more or less, and even if your initial response is, because you see, you're a human being, of course you're going to, like people write me letters. It's amazing where they actually send me pictures of their walls covered with crayon or other things, and they took the photo with them smiling in the picture with their toddler for the later on for the Sheva Brachos, because they got the point. The more and more we practice this behavior, that's really what it is. We're not malachim, and we're not expected to be robots, and we are going to have the initial, when you get covered with Cheerios and milk, you're going to, you're going to react. But if after that you can start laughing, if we would understand how you're programming neural pathways in your child's brain for success and happiness in life, for feeling unconditionally loved at that moment, you would wish they would throw Cheerios and milk on you.
Rabbi Russell, I need to just mix again. I'm getting a lot of questions, people are texting and WhatsApping me. All the questions you're writing are amazing questions, and they're crisis, chinuch, specific questions. Tonight's program, we're starting off with first understanding. We're first even going before crisis chinuch, talking about regular chinuch. So once we understand what are regular children, how we develop healthy children, then we can start getting into the crisis, understanding what it is. Then we can get into specific questions. So anything that Rabbi Russell is talking about tonight, talking about now, when the child markers on the wall, a young love attachment. If you have questions on that, we want to discuss that. We're not discussing anything about the 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, sure. If I can say like this, Osher, take any questions that are asking for clarification of what I'm saying now. Right. I think those questions are really important, because it's important that people understand what I'm saying. If they want to say, well, okay, very nice, I got the Cheerios, but what do I do with my 15-year-old who's not going to school right now? We have to get there. That's going to take us time. I would love to walk us through this in a way that where they won't have that question by the time we get there, because the answer will seem so obvious. Does that make sense?
Right.
If we do that, then by me it's worth every moment of my time getting up at 4 a.m. as I did this morning to be here. It's so worth this whole thing. If we can get people slowly and patiently to a place where you'll understand the question about what to do with your 15-year-old, it'll be pretty obvious what to do by then if we can walk this through. However, if there's a question of clarification, you know, I don't understand what you're saying, could you explain this more or that more, then of course we should take those questions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Look, okay, so let me continue. Look, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about this, and there's a reason for it. Unconditional love. If what we do when we have a brand new child, a baby, 0 to 2, that baby is born with very few neural pathways. There's a brain that's not developed. Most of it is undeveloped when it's born. It has very, very basic reflexes to eat and to process basically the food it's eating and what to do with it. The brain is undeveloped. As we interact with our child, we're actually installing neural pathways in the brain of the child to expand its awareness of life, and it begins to understand how life works. And of course, we constantly do that all the way through life. Brain development doesn't finish until around 26. So there's constant movement as the brain is developing, refining itself, working on itself, and understanding how to make connections between things and understand life. When a child is born, it understands almost nothing, very, 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 very little indeed of what eventually that amazing brain it has will understand. And we're developing neural pathways inside our brain, especially the mother in her interaction with the child, the father too, but mostly in the early years, the mother, and installing inside the child neural pathways. What a bracha for a child who was zeicha to have parents who did the unconditional love. They did the laughing. Again, we're human beings, so when they do things that make us crazy, like pouring Cheerios on our head, or drawing on the painted wall, you know, or you have them on your lap on a long journey, you're going to a chasna and you have your baby on your lap, you know, well, maybe these days they should be in a car seat, but you know, you had your baby on a lap somewhere else, and when you take the baby off, you suddenly discover they've leaked through their clothing onto your chasna outfit. Yeah, those moments are very disturbing, you know, in that moment. But if we were able to understand that in that very moment, if we can react in a way that doesn't make the child feel you're bad, you've done something wrong, and we all laugh about it, and as much as we possibly can, it's a concept. But conceptually, we take the pictures for Sheva Brothers, because we laugh, we turn it into a funny moment, and a warm, loving moment. I believe if we would understand the neuroscience of what we're installing in our child's brain, in terms of it feeling unconditionally loved by us, the parents, if we would understand that, we would wish they would do more things to make our lives difficult, in order that we could have that reaction that would then install inside their developing young brain the belief that we are safe, loving, and caring for them, and they can trust us. Because it's in those early years that we're really installing basically that and nothing else. Okay, so we got that clear. It's so profound, this nakuda, because this nakuda is needed later on in life, when frequently parents will turn around looking at their own teenagers, and they'll be very clear. They'll tell me privately, you know, it's like, I don't feel I really love my child anymore. I'm so angry with him the whole time. I can't reach the love. Well, if you can't reach it, imagine what your child is feeling. Rahman al-Islam. Imagine how painful that is for your child, not to feel that love. It is so crucial that we begin, if we can, and again, Lo nitn malchei hasharetz. We're human beings. We do the best we can. If overall, more or less, we've been doing this, then we're doing a great job. Now, I want to tell you, if I can go on, and I know I'm not taking any clarification questions on this.
For some people just want to understand, like, I mean, there's questions like they're saying, people are texting, when it's cute with this, but Lamaisa, if you keep on laughing with your kid and making this, you're enforcing the bad behaviors.
So it's not, it's a misunderstanding. Of course, you're going to teach them that you can't do this and teach them you can't do that. It's not all Hefgewalt. That's ridiculous.
Anger.
Yeah, it's the anger. It's what I'm trying to say is as you then go to teach them, no, we don't do this with the marker, or, teach them how to hold their spoon or not tip the Cheerios on you. You talk to them from a perspective of love. That's all I'm saying. Of course we teach them what's right and wrong. Of course we have to, they shouldn't misunderstand. I'm saying just laughter and love and hefka. That's ridiculous. What I am saying is in this generation, it's crucial that as we teach them what's right and wrong, we teach it to them in a way that's loving, that they don't have any suffix at all. That I'm here for you, I'm your parent and I love you. That's really the ikka. Okay, makes sense? Thank you for that. Please keep throwing the clarification back, otherwise this will be misunderstood. And,
I'm just writing what people are saying. Take it what you want. Not everything. Whatever. Just somebody writes like they know with their child with the 0 to 2, 0 to 3. They weren't emotionally there for them. Like they want to try to figure out how to repair that.
Okay, so that will come to us. Excellent. That's a very. So let me make it more concrete so we understand why it's important. The reason it's important is especially again we have a hanacha, a principle that we're all agreeing on, that the nature of the world and children has changed from what it was 40, 50 years ago. Therefore, when they do these things wrong, always in the past and present, we have to teach them right from wrong. We have to condition their behavior in a healthy way. The only shift I've said so far is in the old days that was done with withdrawing love and showing, upsetness, frustration. In this generation, we're going to do it by showing love, lots of love, withdrawing the frustration while we teach them what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, so that as we're doing it and we're instructing them about behavior, we're doing it in a way they can receive it in a loving way. Why is this important?
You said it all logically. Can I just play an example so it'll be more clear? So when the child who's 2, 3 years old is coloring on the wall, you could laugh about it, give him a hug and smile. Then you can sit down with him and have a very. You must. Doesn't mean you give him a smile and you buy him a cookie and everything's good. And doesn't mean you scream at him and give him a smack and start screaming about the marker. You laugh about it. You make him not feel embarrassed about it. And then you sit with him in your calm self. Say, listen. No, because you're saying I want to talk like example.
No, this is exactly. Listen, like I said to you, this one thing I've said so far is the subject for the time. Could be the whole night. Do you understand? To get this claw, and I know that
starting to share it now. We should be finished by 2027.
All I can tell you is we're going to do this properly, or we shouldn't do it at all.
Russell, there's a saying by the game Othello. You know the Othello, the black and the white pieces.
Yeah,
it takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master.
I'll tell you another way. They also say the wise people, a little knowledge can be very damaging. A little knowledge, not to understand the whole sugya, but have a little bit of it, can be very dangerous and damaging. That's why I think it's so important. Give me please push back in terms of clarification, because it's important. Of course, my whole principle is that we have to teach our children right from wrong, and we have to do it in a way that they understand it. But in this world we're living in, we have to be very, very careful to make sure we do it through a loving sense of self. So it's consistent with the Shevis Yitzhara, and we bring up a child who feels happy and healthy and capable of self-love and loving others. And that we don't turn them off. They won't take the same angry response that we used to do, withdrawing love and showing frustration. They just think we don't like them. So I want to show you why this is so crucial. It's so crucial because of the next step of normative parenting, which begins around 2, which is about limit setting. See, up until 2, we're really not setting limits very much on our children. They don't have much option to do very much. We're more or less in control of them. But from 2 and on, they start exploring the world. They're walking around, they're doing things, and we are constantly actually for the next 2 to about, I don't know, bar mitzvah age, somewhere around there, we are constantly setting limits. We're setting limits on what they can do and what they can't do. And the rest of it is all easy. We're just teaching them about life. It's all very natural. The conflict, the dissonance, the challenge of parenting occurs in the limit setting. Because as long as you're not setting limits on your kids, everything's
A little
going
more
fine.
clarity. Is this something that both the father and the mother are going with this? Or this the mother, the softer one, the father, the Baal Mechanech? How did that play with the other father?
Both, absolutely. They need from both parents this. And again, I'm going to show you why, given the generation and world we live in today. If you did the unconditional love, if we were Zeicha to do it properly in the 0 to 2, where when we push back on their behavior, we show them, we of course teach them what's right and wrong, but we always did it in a loving way. Then, when we come to the second stage of parenting, which is limit setting, because we're always setting limits. There's limits on eating, there's limits on bedtime, there's limits on brushing your teeth, you have to do this, you can't do that. As parents, basically from 2 and on, we're constantly informing and instructing and teaching our kids what they can do and what they can't do. Maybe we'd say teaching them more about what they can't do, but what they can't do and what they can do. We're constantly setting limits on their behavior, bedtime limits, getting up in the morning limits. There's always limits we're setting on what they want to do, and we're influencing them to do what we know as parents they need to do, should be doing, and have to do to grow up as a functioning, healthy adult. That's the section of limit setting. Now imagine the difference in a child who from 0 to 2 was zeicha to experience life from their parents, that when anything went wrong, of course their parents told them, and taught them what's right and wrong, because that's the obligation of the parents. But they did it with unconditional love, where the children have been installed in their brains that my parents are unconditionally loving of me. Then when the parents set those limits on the children's lives, the children absorb and process the limit setting as a continuation, an extension of my parents love me and want the best for me. In other words, once we've installed that sense of unconditional love in our child, it's so crucial for the next stage, the limit setting stage, because in that stage they now experience and embrace the limit setting. And I'm not sure it's conscious, but in an unconscious way, they're experiencing it from parents who love me. This limit setting must be good for me because my parents unconditionally love me. Whereas if we unfortunately we didn't do enough work on the unconditional love in the first stage, and when suddenly we do limit setting, why are you setting limits on me? I'll go back to what I said before. Nobody likes to be told what to do. Nobody. So when we're telling our kids what to do, internally they're experiencing it as you're trying to limit my happiness in life, my fun in life. They're not experiencing it through the prism of my parents unconditionally love me. It must be that these limits they're setting on me are good for me. That's really what we're trying to achieve. So when we did the 0 to 2 properly, it naturally flows into the next stage of limit setting, where unconsciously the children experience, as painful as it is to set limits on them, because they don't like having limits set upon them, as painful as that is, unconsciously they're experiencing that limit setting as a gift from my parents who love me and want the best for me. Is that making sense?
Yes.
How's the Olam reacting to this? Any comments, any concern that it's not clear?
It's very clear. I think people understand from 0 to, let's just repeat, that unconditional love, right? No matter what they do, basically. And then from the 3 and up, what time to go to sleep, homework, you got to do this, you got to do that, bath. You're constantly guiding them.
Non-stop, years and years and years. We're saying, listen, I say about Shavuos. Shavuos is coming up. We say that we all know that Klal Yisrael got 2 ksarim, one for Naseh, one for Nishma, right? They got 2. So I've often wondered what they get 2 for. if you get one for Nasa, because Nasa is hard. You know, you're being told, I'm going to go and I don't understand, but I accept. If Hashem wants me to do it, it must be good. So I accept it. Nasa, I'm going to do it without any understanding of it. I'm going to do it. So Hashem gives us a crown. That makes a lot of sense. But if you're anyway doing it, anyway doing the mitzvahs, what do you need a crown for Nishma for? Why would you get a crown for Nishma? I'm already doing it anyway. I trust you, Hashem. So you gave me a crown for Nasa because I'm doing what you want me to do. Why would Hashem give a crown for Nishma too? And I think the answer is that when you do Nishma, you're learning the Torah that makes you chayiv to do it. That now you have to do it. And nobody likes being told what to do. So voluntarily learning that I have to do it, I'm chayiv to do it, you get a crown from that. That also you deserve a crown. Meaning like this, nobody ever likes to be told what to do. And as we set limits, especially in this day and age on our children, which is basically most of our parenting from 2 till bar mitzvah, maybe older, is always, and even into the teenagers, with some limitation on setting limits. You know, we're constantly doing it throughout our children's lives. We want our children to experience unconsciously through the program we installed inside their brain, the neurodevelopment started with unconditional love, so that we hope that they will experience and embrace our limit setting as also from unconditional love, and therefore not rebel against us. This is normative, what normative parenting looks like. All that takes us then to the third stage of parenting, which is guidance. When we guide our kids, they come to us because we've been non-stop all their lives showing them that my interest is you. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you learn how to grow up and be a healthy human being. And even when I set limits on your behavior and told you what you can do and told you what you can't do, I did it all through the window and the prism of unconditional love to make sure that my child knows this was for you. It wasn't about my convenience. It wasn't about me having an easier home than my home and my Shabbos table and my life. It was about me helping you grow up as a healthy human being. When we were successful in doing that, especially in setting the limits, so then our children will turn to us for guidance later in life. We are the people they come to, and they want to know which yeshiva to go to, which school to go to, and which Chinuch to get, and which job to get, you know, and all sorts of questions about life. They'll turn to us, looking to us for guidance. That will be their interest, because that's how the system works. It starts with this foundation of unconditional love, which of course continues throughout the childhood.
Not a mentor, I feel like that shift, limit setting to guidance, is where us as parents have a very difficult time engaging and turning that, because we get so in that mode of don't do, yeah, do. I'm warning you, you better not, and we're doing it right until that change happens. And I think we don't ourselves realize when it can happen at the age of 12, it can happen at the age of 14.
Oh, of course.
We don't know. There's no age. People are texting. There's no age. It's when a child reaches a certain point. I don't know if you want to discuss what that point is. It's hard to know.
So I always said the limit setting in terms of the concept in our brain is sort of 2 to around bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah is the primary focus. In this day and age, from around bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah and up, they begin to, we want them to turn to us for guidance. They're living in a challenging world. There are all sorts of challenges and difficulties that they're going to be facing through their teenage years and then up into young adult life. We would love them to turn to us and trust us that we should guide them through this and that we can help them with this. So if we've done that, again, what I'm talking about is an idealized system. I don't know that anyone ever did it 100% perfectly. But you know what? The more we move towards it, and the more, we do it properly, the more likely our children will turn to us for guidance. And when it comes to technology, and it comes to all sorts of the other nisyonis that they inevitably are confronted with and will face, they look at us. You know why they look at us for guidance? Because we've programmed consciously, deliberately, and thoughtfully We programmed into their nervous system unconditional love, that my guidance, my limit setting, everything I've been doing for you was actually about you and your life. It was about your success in this world. It wasn't about me. See, when we get frustrated or angry with them as a way of stopping them from behavior or getting them to do something, and we do it through frustration or anger, we run the risk in this generation of the children believing or feeling that really my prime focus is me. This was for me. You're getting me mad. You're making me upset. And therefore I'm going to condition your behavior because you're making me upset. So that's not a way a child absorbs and understands and will ever turn to us for guidance if it's all about me. In this generation, again, in previous generations, it worked very differently. And that was true. And the children did want the parental love and respect, and therefore would control and conform their behavior in order to get their parents to love them. So withdrawing love and showing frustration worked. But if we do that in this generation, all the children conclude is that I'm an inconvenience to my parent, and that my parent's trying to get me to behave because I'm frustrating their life. It's not about me and my development. Whereas really, ideally, what I want to communicate to my child is, Shefala, I'm here for you. You know, I can handle this. It's not the end of the world for me. I'm a mature adult, but I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned about your development, your behavior. And therefore, that's why I'm pushing back on setting limits on you, because I want you to grow up as a healthy human being. And I have a job as a parent to stand up to you. I have a job as a parent to be a parent, and to tell you what's right and wrong, and what's good and bad. That's my job. But if I do that in a way where the child can unfortunately interpret that the reason I'm really doing it is because I'm frustrated, because it's ruining my Shabbos table, because it's making my life bad, because I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of your behavior. I'm embarrassed when you walk out the house the way you look. It's about me. Then that not only doesn't encourage our children to conform, it actually makes them worse. It makes them worse in this day and age. Is that clear? Is that, I'm looking at your face, Osha, I'm not sure. Are we getting it?
We're bringing in a big topic. It's like really, we're going to go into the next thing, but that's not, whatever. The next thing is like, I'm just
It's
saying.
huge. It's
Right.
huge. I got it. I know it's huge.
Kids, I mean, let's be honest. Kids today, the thing that really triggers them and makes things really spiral is when they say it many times, is you're a hypocrite, you're not real, you're not sincere.
Oh, of course, of
Today,
course.
when they have like much stronger emotions to this type of stuff than back in the day. Like we were growing up, we saw somebody, you know, he did this, okay. But today, if they see that a parent is not really so from, or only cares about his covet, that's when the kid wants to really stick it to the parent, double as much.
That's later on in life. That's exactly what happens. That's why, you know, as I been thinking about these things for the last few decades, it occurred to me so clear in this day and age, if we build from the bottom up the relationship of unconditional love, Dafka, I'm telling you, thoughtful parents realize that the more your kids, so to speak, in the very, very early years, do things that are sort of a little bit defiant or probably challenging and like the Cheerios on your head or the drawing on the wall, whatever they do these things. And the parent responds, of course, to teach them right and wrong and to teach them that that's not okay. And
Somebody texted a question. I think it's very important to just clarify. This is a very good question. How will such a child, when they be confronted with not unconditional love, with a teacher or a boss or a spouse, how could they build their resilience? They want to know if this is the malach, they can only deal with this. So once somebody's going to mess with them, then they're going to be weak.
No, you see, the thing is like this. What we're actually seeing is the opposite. Is they turn to us for guidance exactly on that. We're teaching them, again, we're doing normative chinuch first before we get into crisis chinuch so we can understand how it was meant to work. But if we did this properly, it actually creates resilience in the children, because what they're able to learn from us is the right and wrong. They're able to absorb what is right and wrong, and they can hear it, and they get the gedarim of how to behave in life. And then they turn to us for the guidance when they run into those challenges, when they meet someone who's out there in the world who isn't doing this, who doesn't treat them in a respectful and loving way. They're far more likely to turn to us for support, help, and guidance in how to deal with it, because we've already established a healthy relationship with them. Life is difficult. That's exactly my point, that they inevitably will face challenges, conflicts, and difficulties out there in the real world that we cannot control, we cannot stop. That's a fact of life. But wouldn't it be marvelous if our children knew they can turn to us always for guidance to process how to deal with those problems and what to do with it? Imagine if we would do the opposite, God forbid, and say the world is this tough place out there. I better toughen up my kids so they can deal with it all in a way that they then reject us, God forbid, and not feel safe with us. We'll be lost.
Let me make you tough. So you get out there, you're super tough.
Yeah, it's
You're
the
breaking
only
inside.
parents have tried it and they see it doesn't work. The only thing that really works is we guide our children through our chinuch towards a place in relationship with us where they trust us so deeply because they recognize that all the limit setting we were doing, everything we were doing to try and condition their behavior in a healthy way to do what's right and not do what's wrong, really came from a place inside. The kids experience it as coming to them from a place in us where we're doing the best for them to help them be healthy human beings. Such people, by the way, have phenomenal, amazing social skills. And social skills, it turns out, is probably the greatest attribute of all skills that you need to do life well. Turns out social skills is top. With social skills, they can then work out how to deal with that toughness and that Rebbe, or the Chas v'shalom. I want to take back what I just said. I was responding to what you said, that they have a teacher or a Rebbe or someone who's tough on them. If they deal with someone else in the world, it could be their boss, a co-worker, it could be a friend, anyone who's tough on them. Doing it the way I'm describing it, the children are far more likely to have extremely high level social skills. Their emotional intelligence will be quite high, and they're much more likely to be able to work out how to deal with it, to deal with the real world. Because, and in addition to that, not only have we put those good social skills into the kids, but they're going to turn to us for guidance, how to deal with it, because they trust us. It's
Rabbi Russell, people are texting. It doesn't mean that the child will always be codependent on the parents' advice. The child will be healthy to deal with 95% situations themselves. But if they're in a situation where it's beyond the capability, they feel comfortable to go back to their parent to read through that specific thing.
Exactly. This is idealized parenting.
It creates the most.
In other words, look, all the studies, university studies show that if you look at, again, I don't want to get sidetracked in these studies, but the bottom line is that developing great social skills in children is probably the greatest predictor of ultimate success in life for our children. And what I'm describing here helps develop those great social skills, because doing unconditional love frees us to be able to do the limit setting in a healthy way. When we get the pushback, we talk to them and they're interested in what we have to say, because their experience of it it's all about you, Shafel. It's not about me. It's not about my convenience. It's not about my house. It's not about my home has to be a certain way. It's my interest in helping you grow up to be a healthy human being so you can have a great life. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what my child absorbs. So they have outstanding social skills if you do this properly. And in addition to that, when they get stuck with the conflicts of life, where their natural abilities, they're not sure how to deal with it, they turn to us for that guidance. It's not codependence, it's the opposite. It's called good parenting, extremely good parenting. And if we do extremely good parenting, we don't actually tell them what to do, but we process with them, what are your choices? What do you think? We pull it out of them, and we help them work out what to do with the situation, which 9 times out of 10, they can work out themselves with our support and our help. That's what idealized parenting looks like. Are we okay?
I just want to add that we're really discussing the core foundation of every human being. And
yes.
Talking about, let's say, fresh start, or I see a lot of people, a lot of times it's very deep till it comes out. What they're missing is there just that healthy sense of self.
Correct.
And,
That's
and
what,
once a person has that core foundation, that you mentioned, Rabbi Shimon, I heard it from you. You know that feeling that when you can be in a room with 1,000 people, you don't feel lonely. It's that deep feeling that a person has, connected and okay with himself, with who he is, no matter what's going on around him, no matter what people are throwing at him. He's in a good place because he has that healthy sense of self.
that's right. That's right. This is the foundational. This is so profoundly foundational that when the penny drops and you realize how important this is, it converts the struggles and challenges you have with your children from an inconvenient problem to a fabulous opportunity to actually install in your children resilience, to teach them that. Because you teach them right from wrong in a way that's unconditionally loving, so that the child understands this is for your benefit. This isn't about my convenience. This isn't because I'm frustrated or embarrassed or ashamed of you. It's because I want the best for you. And when that happens, a child can absorb it more naturally, and you're boosting their self-esteem, teaching them resilience. It's like everything is built here. And why this is important, why do I spend so much time when the subject is crisis chinuch? Because I haven't, by the way, even finished with this yet. I still got more to say about the foundation, the building. There's a lot more to say about it. But when you understand this well, when we get to doing what went wrong and understanding exactly what went wrong with the kids that threw them off, what we're actually doing in crisis chinuch, which is so incredible, it's so mind-boggling, is that all of the crisis chinuch concepts that we're going to use later on when they're teenagers are actually repairing these things from the damage from their childhood of not having had this basic foundation. We're going to repair that. It's all about Yeshevas Yitzhak. It's all about going back. I'm not kidding you. It sounds crazy. But the entire crisis chinuch package, if I had to package it some way, is about going back to recreating inside our children the mitzvah of Yeshevas Yitzhak, which is to help our children feel healthy in body and mind, happy, capable of self-love, and loving others. Everything in crisis chinuch takes them back to that. And that's exactly what we watch and what we see. And we see these young adults. Now, it could be it's going to take them till they're in their 30s or 40s, till it completely fulfills itself and blossoms out in its fullness. But crisis chinuch leads towards the repairing of all the damage, where we actually help produce a child who's now a young adult, actually not a young adult, actually an adult bringing up their own kids. And they've gone back to repair those roots, where they're these healthy, happy people, and they don't feel lost in this world, and their self is built and developed, and they feel good about themselves. That's really what, that's why it's so important, to understand all this, to prevent it all in the first place, to try and help prevent it, but also when it happens, how do we repair it? We now understand a model of actually what we're doing, why crisis chinuch works, because it's all about repairing that early damage. It's really incredible. See, when you do this early job properly, I haven't really mentioned the word tonight yet, but now I want to mention the word attachment, because without mentioning that word, we're just not going to have the sugya b'shleimus. It's not, people like, everyone knows I'm going to talk about attachment. I actually made a decision something like 8 or 9 years ago that I felt when I started speaking more publicly that the anchor that probably I can convey these messages best, that I'd simply learned through my career, working, there's 35 years of doing the work now, but working with, hurt people, really hurt people. What I recognize at the core of recovery is attachment. And that attachment, that reconnection, both to parents, well, actually to yourself first, then to your parents, your family of origin, when you can, and then to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. in that order. And that order is meduyak. It's very, very important. It's such a painful struggle for parents to understand it has to be in that order. And I can tell you, I've been to many, many Gedolei Yisrael who I discussed this with over the years, so there was no misunderstanding. We don't, chas v'shalom, don't care about mitzvahs and look away from mitzvahs. If a child is ever going to re-embrace, that's going to be their choice. That's going to be their choice. They will decide yes or no. But they're far more likely to be able to address that issue, to decide if they want to or not, if they've reattached to themselves first and reattached to their parents. So we put it in that order first. Reattach to yourself, become a healthy person within yourself, then to your parents, and then we'll come to Kodesh Baruch Hu. But we're running ahead.
Rabbi Russell, let's just recap this little part. I'm going to recap it. Is that okay? And then we'll go to the next part of healthy.
Yes, you recap while I get some more water. I'm sorry. Okay.
I want to make sure I'm doing it right. What happens if I say wrong?
I'm listening. I'm hearing you. I'm listening. Don't worry.
Basically, Rabbi Russell said in the normal formative healthy development, there's 3 stages. The 0 to 2, where the child gets unconditional love, that you're always there for them, no matter what they do, no matter how much they cry, and that attachment gives them the love internally that from the ages of 3 to, let's say, hypothetically 12 to 14, they get the limit setting chinuch, so they feel that embodiment, internal love, so that when you tell them go to sleep at a certain time, do your homework at a certain time, and you're doing like 90%, I don't know, a big percentage of that stage, you're doing a limit setting, they have that strength, and then whenever that time is 12, 13, 14, 16, where the child goes from limit setting to guidance, they have that connection, and they have that connection so that from there going forward, Russ, right, till you're 90, they come to you for guidance. There's no limit to that. So that's the healthy form of healthy chinuch. That's what I understood.
Very good. Excellent. Okay. So let's see if we can take it further. Okay. Any drasha like this, any conversation like this has to now examine the subject of attachment. Now, I don't want to go into Bowlby and all the different aspects of attachment. That's not nagir right now. Let's just do one simple thing. Secure attachment with your parents. Being connected to your parents in a secure way is probably the greatest predictor of ultimate success in life, of being resilient to all of life's problems, and you yourself maximizing your potential, being able to work on your own midas, grow up, be a healthy, productive human being. Having secure attachment is probably the essence, the foundation, and the principle beyond all that predicts all the following happening. Now, let's see if we can examine, if we can, how this happens. So I talk about this, and I guess we should do this, just relatively quickly but clearly through the prism of the 4 S's of attachment, right? Am I right? That I don't know any other way to do it, but just really briefly that we look at this and understand how we develop healthy attachment. For our purposes, healthy, secure attachment with our parents is everything we've been describing till now. So that we trust our parents, a child believes that what my parents are really trying to do for me is in my best interest. It's not about them. It's not about my parents' ego. It's not about them being embarrassed or them being ashamed or them needing the yichus. It's about my parents. I really embraced and experienced my parents as bringing me up, trying to help me maximize the very best for me. That's what we've done until now. But now it goes much, much, much deeper. Because it goes deeper about life itself, about how we live in this world and we can cope with all the challenges, difficulties, struggles, and problems of this world, as by developing this deep attachment with our children, which helps our children become resilient to the problems of life when we do them properly. And we describe these through the 4 S's. And just very, very quickly, we'll review what they are. They are, if you read my book, you'll see they're in there. I didn't invent this, taken this from others, but this, it wasn't my chiddush here, but I'm just exploring it and using it because I think it's such a marvelous model of safe, secure, seen and soothed. The first is we have to make sure our children feel safe. That goes back also to the parenting, that when we're setting limits on them, like in the old days, I said we withdrew love and we showed frustration, or we gave the svei patch. We have to reconsider that when we're doing the normative parenting things, we do it in a way where our children feel safe with us. We're not, like going into a fury of anger where we frighten our children into behavior. We have to make sure they're safe in our home, they feel safe in life, and it includes an awful lot of things about, not driving in a way that's unsafe, and making sure that, the doors and the windows are locked at home, those kind of things. But it really goes to the heart of parenting, where we create a relationship with our children where when we push back and when we stop them and when we interfere with their behavior, we do it in a way where they feel safe with us. We don't frighten them into behavior. We definitely stand up to them. We definitely stop them. We definitely try to influence them. And we can't just allow them to do whatever they want to do. That's anarchy. That's destructive. That's crazy. But when we do it in a way that our children always feel safe with us. They don't feel frightened of us. The world we grew up in the world we grew up in, they did. A parent
I'm
would...
not going to feel that the parent is going to snap on them or hit them or do something embarrassing that they're feared into.
Right, you can't frighten them. In the world we grew up in, that was normal. To get hit, to get caned, it was normal. That world has changed. And although, of course, there are some children who will do just fine with that, even in this day and age, what's clear as day to almost anyone is that most children won't. And if most children won't, unless you're some genius, you could tell me how you know it, unless you're some genius insight that you know at 4 years old which one your kid is he the kid that can handle it or the child that can't, then we simply have to err on the side of safety for ourselves and make sure that we're very, very careful that we don't use fear frightening our children into correct behavior because they're scared of us, where they're really, and again, I don't mean, well, tonight I get, upset and I send them to bed and I'm tough and they go to bed, they're frustrated and, they don't want to go to bed and a strong father stood up to them. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where you really frighten them, where they really feel unsafe with us.
They're hiding in their closets.
Yeah, and that includes things, by the way, safety includes things like, when they're older. I mean, there's so many, I could give a whole hour long just on safety. Obviously we can't do that in the context of tonight, but it goes from that kind of thing where they're hiding in the closets to the safety at the Shabbos table, where a child can feel terribly unsafe because they are aware that any moment now, someone's going to want to do my parsha sheet, and I really don't know the material. And they feel they're going to be ridiculed, laughed at, embarrassed, or shamed. It goes everything from the bedtime getting angry and scaring a kid to even the Shabbos table with the parsha sheet, where a kid is frightened to come because they say a svara. I know kids who sat there, they told me they were scared to open their mouth.
Sorry for just interrupting, but I feel like getting too many texts, they're all saying the same thing. People keep on writing, I feel like I messed up, I feel like I didn't give my kids when they were young.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling the guilt. So let's clarify.
Can I just clarify for everybody, nobody ever did all of this properly. Can we all take a deep breath? No one ever did this properly. I was said at the outset, and if you joined later, I'm going to say it again, and we should continue saying it. No one ever did this properly and perfectly. What I'm describing is idealized. What we're ideally looking for is doing it the best we can, and knowing what I'm saying tonight helps us know what it is I need to repair later on. It's going to make sense when we talk about some of the crisis chinuch interventions and things we're going to do, the penny's going to drop. Say, oh, that's because of that. You know, I didn't
Somebody
do
in
it.
the first 10 years was very aggressive with the kid and they didn't make them feel safe. They're going to, at the end of this series, understand what the crisis chinuch will repair in that problem.
Going to help them. It's going to help them so much. See, that's why I always say I don't want to do like tools. Do this, do that, it'll fix it. They think, well, game of sugar, you should do that. You mad? It won't make any sense to you if you don't understand this. But when you understand all this, what should have happened ideally, well, then when we do the crisis chinuch ideas and interventions, it's going to go, oh my gosh, I'm repairing the attachment. Wow. That makes sense. And the good news is that what we've been working on, you know, myself with colleagues and friends and all sorts of us working on this for many, many years, is we begin to understand that later on, you can repair this. It can be repaired. That's the good news. But how can you repair it if you don't know what you're repairing? If you don't know what, you know, how you inadvertently impacted your child, you don't know what you did. As far as you're concerned, you did what your Zayda did. You remember, your father did. They whacked you, so you whack your kids. Like, you know, you did. Look, I have one parent. I'll just say this is an anecdote.
Well, I want to say one other thing. Right? Chase Pop said a very good word. He was here 2 weeks ago. Said, how much can we have against our parents? You have to realize our parents and grandparents, they did the chinuch where they were coming from extreme, torturous, they were raised that way. We have to be he called it the cycle breakers that are changing that whole cycle. But they didn't, like, that's what they had to do.
Yeah, of course. And I'm not blaming, there's no blame. You know, I don't do blame. I just try and look at the problem and say, what can we do about it? Everyone listening, if a person is having that reaction, that's marvelous. What can I tell you? Then you're recognizing, okay, I see it. I can take responsibility. You know, I don't do accountability. I leave that up to Rabbi Shimon, because everyone comes through their own journey and they have their own struggles. No one deliberately doesn't do these things for their kids. No one made a choice. No, I want to make sure my kids are miserable. That never happened. We're adrabah. People are loving, caring people who want to have children, and they cry when they're born. They're so happy to have them, and they want to do the best for them. The thing is, in the challenging world we're living in, if you're just going to copy what your parents did to you, the world is changing so fast. When you do that cut and paste, chances are you're doing the wrong thing. I had a very wonderful person came to me recently. He told me he had, here in Eretz Yisrael, I was walking, whatever, it was very interesting. And this very, very chashuv Talmid Chacham, he said to me, he said, you know, I know you talk about this, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. He tells me that he has a bunch of kids, I forget how many, but he told me 6 or 7 children, or 8 children, I forget. And all the first ones, they're amazing. And he told me how well they're doing, and they're married, and you know, everyone's doing great. And this youngest one is just not doing well. And it's crazy, and blah, blah, blah. What do I do? He was seeking help. But I noticed a comment he said, and I said, it was just a walking, it wasn't a climb, I was just walking with him. I said, you know, can I make a comment on something you just said? And you tell me if it makes sense to you. He said, yeah, go ahead. I said, you just said these words. He said, I did this job and 7 of my kids, they all turned out amazing. He said, and then he said, I don't understand. I did the same thing with the younger one, the same thing. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why didn't it work? And I said to him, maybe that's the answer, is your children need different things. And if you cut and paste, and you just have a sheet and chinuch, and I cut and paste it, so for some kids it's going to work. It's almost never going to work for all your kids. If that child was different, Anita is in a different world, grew up in a different environment, in a different world, and needs something different from you. And I explained to him how it's the opposite of, he had done the, you know, withdrawing love and showing the frustration. And I said, this younger one is not young, he's probably in his 20s. And he's just not doing well. I said, in this generation, he needs the opposite. Like, he chapped, it was such a beautiful thing. He understood, you're right. What he'd done is taken what I grew up with, and then I do it on the next generation, hope for the best. What we're seeing with the young children today, that doesn't work. That's not reliable. We have to make sure the children, like I said, they feel connected to us. So that's what brought us to the attachment issue. All this can be repaired, and all of this is very, very important as Nageya. When we teach the crisis chinuch concepts later on, then they will make sense. Oh, that's why I'm doing it. That's why it's going to work. It'll come from within. It'll come from within.
Russell, can we do a live question for a second?
Well, if it's clarification, yes. Is it? Is it clarification?
We'll find out. Hi.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is clarification on the repair. What, like, this story that you just said is exactly us. All our kids, Baruch Hashem, great. My youngest son is 20, so we're much older parents, and he's his own man. We try to let him be, but it's hard. Like, how do you repair? Like, I feel like there could be much more attachment. You know, he'll give me roll his eyes and.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And Oshan, I understand why you put the question on. Makes perfect sense. That, if you could be patient, rather than me jumping to the end without building the structure that will make it make sense. What I can say to you is that you've identified correctly that this younger child needed probably something different, needed the connection, didn't get it in the same way the older ones got it more naturally. So now what you're going to have to do later on is focus on your connection with it. And that repair doesn't happen overnight, but it happens. If you keep focusing on your connection with it, the chances are it's going to work. But forgive me, I don't want to get into that now without getting sidetracked. And Osha, if it's okay, we can go back to finishing at least for today.
One question I want them to understand that's exactly what we're doing. To do that is to really understand the foundation. Tonight's year should have been titled "Normal Chinuch," so you could understand what crisis chinuch is.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, but I don't know any other way to do this properly than to do it right. And maybe next time we do the next one, you can refer people back to this one and say, if you're going to come on tonight, then please listen to this other one first, or it won't make sense. Right? Can we do that? Okay. So listen, this is Dan Siegel's work. This is not mine. Dan Siegel, was Machadish, the 4 S's. I took it and have adapted it into this work, and I just find it so amazing in terms of how we create healthy attachment with our children. Idealized. So idealized attachment, we would do, as I said, first making them feel safe with us. So we look at all aspects and parameters of our relationship with our child through these 4 words. So do they feel safe? I actually use it diagnostically when someone comes in for help, a new client. We will talk through the 4 S's because they will almost always identify which of the 4 S's were missing for them in their childhood, so we can now focus on where the repair work is going to have to be. And the 4 S's will almost always, when done properly and together, create resilience. And resilience means the power to bounce back, the ability to bounce back and do well in life. So the first one we said is safe. Secure is the next one. Secure meaning that they can rely on us. They can rely on us. They can rely on our home being a loving home. They can rely on an environment free of aggression and anger and frustration. They can be secure in the knowledge that our parenting is for their interest, to help them be happy people. They're secure about obvious things about life, like the Shabbos table is going to be, I'm secure to sit there because I feel confident I'm going to be treated well. I'm secure that I'll get the right clothes in season.
It sounds very similar.
Very similar, but it's also, I'm secure about the knowledge that, like I said, I'll get clothes in season, or if I want to go to camp, it's not like this, I don't know if we'll have money. I don't know what's going to, let's see, let's talk it out. Let's do it in a way that makes them feel secure that either that will happen or we'll work something else out. But something is going to happen to take care of you. We want the children to feel secure in their relationship with us. And by the way, one of the best ways to show that security is in the knowledge of the caring of their parents for each other, and their parents process life respectfully in front of them. Parents don't always agree with each other, and they may have a lot to work out together, but at least in front of the children, the children can be secure in the love they expect to their parents and the respect the parents have for each other. It goes on and on. Look in the book or learn more about the word secure, but that's the second one. Seen is probably one of the most important ones of all, is where we have to bring up our children within the true framework of Menachem al pi darkei. That Vav, according to his way, is more crucial in this generation than it's probably ever been before in the history of the world. I've heard from great speakers, I actually heard in B'Shem Rebbe Leib, Zeich Tzaddik Rachel Steinman, that Chinuch is the only mitzvah that kind of changes. It's the only mitzvah. Every other mitzvah has very clear halachic parameters. The parenting, Chinuch, bringing up our children, changes according to the generation, the time, and the child. It's Menachem al pi darkei, it's according to them. It's always moving and changing. So we always have to work out how to adjust to them. That means seen. Seen means I notice the uniqueness of my child and I reflect it back to them. It's not good enough I see it. Not only do I see it, but I actually share it with my child where they know I know. So that I see what they're special, what's unique, what's special. I see their struggles and I recognize the uniqueness of their struggles, and I see their milas, I see their strengths, and I help them develop those strengths. So I see their uniqueness. It's not, many of us, I don't know, this never occurred to us. So we had a bunch of kids, and we always thought of them as the kids. Like get the kids in the car, get the kids in the bath, get the kids to bed. It's the kids, it's this thing called the kids. And we're just like shuffling our kids around like this big group. And it feels like they all need the same thing. The truth is, they're individuals, they're unique, and they actually need different things. We have to learn to see our children for who they are. That means see their strengths and help them build their unique strengths, and see their weaknesses and struggles and help them overcome their unique struggles and difficulties. We have to whisper in their ear. I used to, try as hard as I could when my children were young to whisper in their ear. Friday night, give them a bracha and just whisper in their ear something I saw special about them this week, something unique, something they did to show them I notice you. Because a lot of what happens with our children is they don't feel we know who they are. Like my parents don't know me. They don't realize who I am. And so that breaks the attachment. All these three work together. So safe, secure, seen, and the last one is soothed. And soothed, for our purposes, means that as the children go through life, they will hurt. They'll get into trouble and they will hurt. They'll hurt themselves physically and they'll hurt themselves emotionally. Now, very often, we're tempted to give a mussar joshua. A kid takes their bike before they can really ride it properly, and they go and try to ride it, they fall, and they hurt themselves. They break a finger, and you've got to go to the hospital to fix it. And in the old days, the first response to that was, who told you to take the bike? Didn't I tell you? I told you wait till Tati comes home. What are you doing? We give them a whole mussar joshua first. In the old days, that was normal. In this day and age, the very first response to whatever they did, even, and by the way, especially when they caused it themselves, the first response is soothe them. Make them feel soothed. Make them feel, I feel bad for you. It's hurting. Even if you warn them about how they might get in trouble in school, what things they're doing that could cause problems in their life, and you talk to them about it and you warn them, and they don't listen, and they get into trouble. If you soothe your children first when they got into a problem, they're far more likely to engage themselves and more likely to recognize that maybe I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. When they see they can rely on their parents to soothe them first, to tune into them, and then afterwards have a conversation about how did you get into this problem? What was it that you did? What could you have done to avoid getting hurt in the first place? Especially where they disobeyed you and did something wrong and got hurt in the process, whether emotionally hurt or physically hurt, like I said in the bike example. They didn't listen, and they were using a peeler, and you told them how to use it carefully, and they didn't listen, and I know what I'm doing, so you don't have to tell me. And then, wow, they just scraped their finger and they're crying. The first thing you do is not so, I told you, didn't I tell you? The first thing you do is you go soothe them. You go take care of the problem. After you've taken care of the problem, you could discuss with them, and very often you don't even need to, because they'll turn to you and say, I should have listened to you, or, I probably did it too hard. But then you can talk to them about it afterwards. In this day and age, first you soothe, and then we do the conversation about what, of course you have to talk to them about what they did wrong, but that's all afterwards. First you soothe them. So what we found, and I've done this very big kids, but what we found is when you do safe, secure, seen and soothe together, so you create attachment. You create a relationship with your child where your child sees you, the parent, in a way where I trust you, I'm connected to you, I feel safe with you, I feel secure with you, I feel seen by you, I feel soothed by you. You are the person I can rely on in life is my parent. And the profound benefit of that for all later on your parenting as they get older and they get into real problems, because little children, little problems, big children, big problems, we all know that. And we all know the profound principle of older, you get bolder. So the older you are, the bolder you are in doing whatever you want to do. If we've created the healthy attachment, they turn back to us for the help and support. So all this goes together. The Sheva Sitzara is our primary focus, is trying to help a child develop to be healthy, happy, capable of self-love, loving others. We then bring them up in a way with unconditional love, where ideally, again, this is all idealized, but they ideally experience our limit setting as we must, and I can't say that loud enough. If we don't set limits for our children, then we create a disaster in our life. We have to stand up to our children. We have to be parents. All this, the liberal sounding stuff, you read, yes, maybe later on for children who didn't get this stuff, we're going to have to use very permissive and liberal mahalchim to bring them back. But the idealized form of parenting is where we stand up to them and we create appropriate boundaries and rules and structure. I used to say rules, structure, and discipline, like a concept. One of my children, a daughter of mine, pointed out to me, she was really horrifying in it. She said, Tom, I think you got it wrong. Respectfully, very respectfully, I think you got it wrong. Or would it not be structure, rules, and discipline, not rules, structure, and discipline? I had a conversation with her and I realized she was dead right. Rules, structure, and discipline sounds like, that's what we got to do with our kids. But actually it's very, very precise. We create the structure through limit setting for our children to grow up healthy. Otherwise they can't. They're just going to be villain. They'll do whatever they want. They have impulses. They're children. They can't see the consequences of their behavior yet. That's not possible. They're children. They don't have the brain development for it. So first we create structure. That's the limit setting, is creating structure. That's really all we have to do, is create the structure. What do we need rules for? To communicate the structure to the children. Because you can't sit down and have a philosophy discussion with your child about why you need structure. They're 3 years old. It's not going to work. You can't have a conversation about it. So how do we communicate to the children the structure they need? We give them rules. The purpose of the rules is only so that they can understand the structure of how we're trying to help them grow up in a healthy way. That's the point of rules. There's no mitzvah in rules otherwise. Rules is just to create the structure. The problem is, we as parents unwittingly break the rules ourselves. We model breaking the rules. I'll give you a good example. You say it's bedtime, 7. We do this all the time. We don't realize. It's kind of comical in a way. It's, you say 7 o'clock is bedtime. 7 o'clock, boom, bedtime. Everyone's like, all the kids to bed. Great. What happens when you, the parent, get a very important phone call at 5 to 7 and you're still on the phone till 10 past 7? And suddenly, it's 10 past 7, bed, and you go crazy. What did you just tell your kids? 7 o'clock is flexible. And by the way, we do this with everything. Everything we ever create rules for, there's always flexibility because that's life. Life is like that. You have no control. So while you try your best to keep those rules, unless you're some super unhealthy, disciplined person, that's like such a robot, if you're a real human being, you discover pretty quick that these rules, they're a little bit flexible because life happens and the kids pick that up and they notice that none of these rules are exact and refined. So what do? How do they find out if the rules are real? They test them. They push back against the rules. Is the only way little children can test whether these rules are important or not. Because they learn from us that we're not keeping our own rules. So the point of rules is for the structure. We then mess up the rules ourselves. So then how do we communicate to the kids the rules are really important? When they push back, we have discipline. So we do the discipline to inform the kids the rules were actually very important. They then pick that up and keep the structure. The point of rules and discipline is for the rules is for the structure. The purpose is only structure. There's no benefit in rules and discipline other than how it keeps the structure. Without the structure, the whole thing falls apart, and you can't have children growing up healthy unless we, parents, provide them with structure, which means, the parameters of life about what's right and wrong, what you can do and what you can't do. That's our job. So if we do that in a healthy, loving way, where our matar and goal was only ever to bring up a healthy human being. I had no other goal. It wasn't about my ego. It wasn't about me. It was all about the kid. I communicated somehow magnificently to my child that I'm here for you. And so I'm doing the structure in such a loving way with passion and love and caring because I want you to grow up healthy. So when I do the rules, I even do the rules in a loving way. I'm not angry with you. I love you. I want you to be successful. So I want you to have this structure. So here's the rules, Shefala, so that you understand the structure, because I can't have a conversation about structure. That I can't do with you. So I give them rules. They push back on the rules because we break the rules. We then give discipline. The kids have the rules are important. They do the structure, but it's all in a loving way. It's in a way where they believe it's about them, not about me. And that's the idealized world of parenting. That's how it's meant to work. That's how it should work. If we do that, give me a few minutes here, Osher. This is really, really important. And I'll set up with what I'm about to say. I want to set up the next part 2 of Crisis Chinuch. Is that okay?
I have all the time in the world.
No, I'm serious. If anyone thought we could do the whole sugya tonight, this is the foundation on which, understanding this, I want to now tell you what happens when it doesn't work. See, even if you did this, people have a kasha. My kids went off, or I have 1 or 2 of my kids struggling. I don't know. I don't think I did such a crazy parenting. When I look at my neighbors, my friends, when I look at my brother and my brother-in-law, my sister, my sister-in-law, I look at others, I don't know. They yell at their kids too. I don't get it. I don't understand. We weren't that much worse than them. So that kasha lies in the world amongst everyone, because everybody knows someone else who probably did yell at their kids and did threaten their kids and they did all this stuff, and they don't seem to have done such a great parenting, and yet their kids will turn out these beautiful cookie cutter kids. I don't get it. What happened to me? This is like, it lies there in the world, this kasha, right? So I want to address this kasha. What I described tonight till now was, in my opinion, idealized parenting that no one ever did. you'd have to be a Malach Hashem Tzvakas. Maybe there is one Malach Hashem. I can actually think of someone. I don't want to say the name in Lakewood. Someone I know.
Not me, right? Not me.
Malach Hashem Tzvakas. Mamish, someone who just naturally. I do know a few people who just naturally do this. There are some amazing Malachim amongst us, but the 99% of us didn't know this, never understood this, and worse still, we came from circumstances, be it from our own childhood, that actually prevented us doing it. We actually did feel threatened by our kids. We didn't realize it, but actually we felt threatened by our own children. There was old wounds we had. That's what Fresh Start is about. That's really what we're trying to do at Fresh Start. That's really why we even started Fresh Start, was because we recognize people have old wounds. Now, actually, there's a fantastic book. I hope she doesn't mind that I mention it, but Dr. Kozlowitz in Lakewood, Dr. Spur Kozlowitz is writing a book that I believe is going to be foundational for all parents. Foundational, so profound. It's called Post-Traumatic Parenting. I hope she doesn't mind that I'm mentioning it, but it's going to come out soon. And it's about how to parent your children. Do all these things I described tonight, where you yourself had your own previous childhood traumas or problems and struggles that got in the way. How do you do it? She's writing an amazing book on that. A Fresh Start, that's exactly what we try to do. And in Kesher Nafshi, what we're trying to teach through Crisis Chinuch, like I said, go online and watch the drashos or come to the conference and come and learn about it, because that's what we're trying to teach, is to help understand when, unfortunately, you weren't able to do it properly. And I'm going to explain what that means in a moment. What do we do about it? How do we remediate that? How do we fix that problem? But I want to address this one kasha to start, and we'll finish with this, I think, for tonight, Usha. Because it doesn't make sense to move, forward yet. So the kasha is this: I did more or less good enough parenting. In fact, I believe that most parents I've ever met did more or less good enough parenting. That means if you look at the bell curve of life, 80% in social science will define what's normative. What's normal. Some better, some worse. It's a bell curve. In the bell curve, most people fit. Most people did normative parenting. They're normal people. They're healthy people. I don't believe other than a tiny percentage of us did what I've described tonight, did all of that perfectly. A tiny percentage may. I think we all did components of what I described tonight. We did pieces of it. We maybe didn't do it frequently enough, consistently enough, reliably enough, maybe. I hear that. But we did more or less normative parenting. And with more or less normative parenting, you bring up more or less normative children. It's really important to understand that. They will come out more or less okay, and they'll go on their own journey in life, but they will shtelzu, they'll be able to cooperate, they'll go to school, they'll dress more or less okay, they'll behave, they'll embrace mitzvahs, they'll do life, they'll come out happy kids, more or less. Because most people do more or less good enough parenting. All that isn't good enough if your child goes through any form of trauma. This is the painful truth we've come to understand. You can do more or less good enough parenting, but if your child experiences some form of trauma, especially when parents almost never know about it or never know the impact of it, even if they know about it, but they don't understand the impact of it on their child. In almost all cases where the child will react to the traumatic experiences they've had, and again I repeat, normative parenting more or less, the child experiences some sort of trauma, will react to that some sort of trauma. The parents almost never know either what the trauma was, they don't know it happened, and or don't believe it's really traumatic, and or don't understand that even if there appear to be no signs of it, it's affected their child quite deeply and maybe will come out after puberty or at a different stage of life, will suddenly come out of nowhere, lies dormant, explodes in their face later on, and then, unprepared, they try to do regular chinuch, to try and now stabilize a child, hold a child together who didn't get anything other than more or less good enough parenting, had trauma. Regular chinuch won't work anymore. And we lose the kids. This is the challenge. If we did idealized, everything I described tonight, idealized imperfectly, which again, maybe 1% of human beings do, it's theoretically possible, and I believe it's probably true, that even with trauma, the children will be resilient. They would go back to their parents, they would process with them, there'd be the safety, the environment of attachment, quite likely, where the trauma would be processed, and much less likely to appear later on, where the focus was idealized, that maybe a tiny percent have. Most of us didn't do that. Then trauma struck. We didn't even know it struck. We didn't understand what it was. Whether it was some form, I don't want to go into the conversation for now, but for next time, perhaps this is where we should pick it up. What exactly the trauma is that happens to our children, whether it's a form of sexual trauma, we know molestation is rampant, we know that. Whether it's a form of learning trauma, we know that's rampant too, where children are not of the maturity level to be able to process properly what's happening, and they end up with learning trauma, or they have what I call de facto learning traumas, because problems and sorrows and issues of life, simply money, health, all sorts of issues that surround them, prevent them having an open mind to be able to learn. So they can't. It's not the fault of any rebbeim or schools, chas v'shalom, not at all. They come into the system unable to really learn properly, and no one knows this. No one really understands this in the early years. When trauma strikes, more or less good enough parenting isn't good enough. Worse still, the trauma is sandwiched between more or less good enough parenting, which isn't strong enough to remediate trauma. And on the other side of the sandwich is that almost all parents were told and get advice that's wrong on what to do when the children start rebelling, if you don't understand what the trauma is and you try to control them, with toughness and strict discipline, without understanding what has happened to them and why they're struggling, then that actually makes the attachment worse, and it puts them off, because it's the wrong mahalach. Comes crisis chinuch later on and helps you understand, when this system happened, what should we be doing to help stabilize their lives and stay attached to them? How do we do that? That's really what crisis chinuch is all about. When you've had more or less good enough parenting, which wasn't good enough for trauma, trauma happened one sort or another. And I think, Usha, that we should take a Menachem, I think we should take the next one and examine what are the traumas and how do they affect the kids? And more importantly, why is it impossible? It's not anyone's fault, but why is it impossible to use normative chinuch models for someone who had more or less good enough parenting, but it wasn't perfect, and then had trauma? Normative parenting at that point is going to fail and be a mazik. Why is that true? And I think that's what we should do on the next session, if you want, is to discuss what is the trauma that affects them, but more importantly, how does it affect the brain? How does it affect the brain of the child, so that we can now understand why the normative attempts to straighten them out when they're 12, 13, almost always fail. And you need crisis chinuch at that point, or you're going to lose your kid. Why is that true? I think that should be the next conversation. Even prior to getting to what we do, we should do that next, if that makes sense. Okay?
Okay, let's just go to closing and let's just recap tonight. Is that okay, Rabbi Russell? We do that so we have it down pat.
Sure.
Okay, let me just go.
You know, why don't you do? Listen, do me a favor. Why don't you or Menachem do it instead, and I'll tell you if you're right.
Deal. Okay, let's go to the closing, and then I'll Menachem. I should do it. What do you want to do? Menachem, I could recap if you want, but if you want to do it,
Start.
okay, so let's just go to the closing part. Okay, again, shkoyach for everybody coming tonight. Shkoyach for Rabbi Shimon Russell waking up 4 a.m, drank his tea, his coffee, he's up. It's ready. We heard the birds chirping. He's there. Shkoyach for coming on. As we said in the beginning of the program tonight is a multiple series. Sounds like it's going to be based on what we did. This is like a 10-volume series. I'm just letting you know. So Menachem, you will mark this as volume 1. But what we tried to do tonight is simply discuss what the ideal parenting is. That is going to teach us as we go through this thing what crisis chinuch is. It all relates back to the regular parenting. And I know a lot of people ask questions. A lot of people want to submit questions. Again, like we said, we're going to get to every single question. The goal Rabbi Russell wants to do, if the person is going to listen to this one and all of them, by the time he gets to the end, we'll have 95% of the answers. There'll be specific things they want to ask. And I have to understand also, everybody has a specific story. And even now I'm getting text. My 15-year-old, my 13-year-old, those are all very specific stories. There's no way Rabbi Russell could answer thousands of questions on a program. But if he gives the knowledge of understanding what it is, most of the answers you'll have. And again, if you have a specific situation, you can reach out to Rabbi Russell. You can go to Chinuch. Anybody who's in this parsha or starting this parsha, who might even think his kid has trauma or something, come to Chinuch. I'll be there. Rabbi Russell will be there. It's the week before Shavuos. It's literally coming up in, I think, 2 weeks. Rabbi Russell?
Yes. Yeah, 2 weeks.
To Shabbosim. Come. We'll schmooze it out. We'll have a good time. By the way, the food's also very good. Separate note.
You know what's more important, by the way, if I can say about Kesher Nafshi, one of the things people, aside from the information that's invaluable, is you're in a yam of people who also have the same problem. You're so not alone. The support is just mind-boggling. You're in a community of fabulous, wonderful people, all struggling, with this sugya together. And the power of the group is just, I don't know, I find it mind-boggling.
The one thing that's mind-blowing to me, Adi Yamazan, I've been there multiple times, is that you have hardcore Hasidim, Lubavitch, modern Orthodox, some very, very modern, very religious, and you have all different parts of the world, and it's such a achtas, whatever. It's hard to explain it, but again, let's go to the closing. Again, if anybody wants to join the WhatsApp program, to get the things, text 732-314-7010. Go to menachembernfeld.com. Menachem next week, June 2nd. We didn't confirm everything yet, but we'll let you know what the program will be. It should be an amazing program. Everything will be recorded. If anybody has any questions, please email coachmenachem@gmail.com. And if anybody wants to watch it, watch it at menachembernfeld.com. And tonight's share is 186. You can also listen to it on the phone lines tomorrow, 732-305-9011. And if anybody wants to be in contact with Rabbi Russell, definitely do not call him unless you listen to all 10 programs. Then I'll give you his home address and a cell phone number. You can call him every single day. I'm joking.
And it's the last time I come on this program. Done.
But come to Chinuch and you could meet Rabbi Russell and you could hear the drushes, and there's a tremendous chizik over there. If anybody's in the sukkah, but that's for real. And again, thank you to all the advertising sponsors. I'm going to go to the recap. Menachem, do you want to say anything? You want me to say how do? Because I'm ready for the recap. If you want to say something,
Start the recap, and I'll just add.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we learned here tonight. So first of all, what we discussed tonight is really normal parenting, what Hashem created, what we should try to do. We discussed very clearly the goal of parenting is really 3 stages. There's the 0 to 2, which is unconditional love, which I understood it as basically the kid can cry, the kid can make a dirty diaper, the kid can make you dirty. Nobody screams at a 1-year-old. Nobody, right? We hug them, we hold them. That gives them the beautiful bond of unconditional love that they feel internally inside. And I can even get into so many books of so many things that parents don't do it. Okay. And then there's from 3, when the kid starts talking and going to sleep and going tomorrow, where there's basically limit setting. Go to sleep on time, take a bath, don't do this, don't touch that, don't touch this, don't that. I hope most of that chinuch is really setting him up so you can't have a conversation with a 4-year-old about what time he should go to sleep because it's good for his healthy body. So you actually have to enforce the rules almost like, I'm going to say like a prison guard, right? So he could function, so he could be a healthy human being. And then it goes into the next stage, which is really the goal of everybody, is guidance, and that could start at any age, really. Rabbi Russell said it's usually around puberty. It could be a little bit later. It could be, there's no exact age, and that's when the parenting really changes from the limit setting. When you tell your kid, "Oh, it's 11 o'clock, you got to go to sleep," and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about." So that when that starts happening, it's guidance. You say, "Listen, if you go to sleep on time, you'll have koiches for tomorrow, and you'll be able to have this," and that's when you turn into the guidance. And that's the three ideal. That's the three stages of parenting. And then the ideal point of all the parenting, if anybody's gone to Kashanafshi, listen to any one of Rabbi Shimon Russell's rushes, is the 4 S's. Again, we'll repeat them very clearly because people kept on asking what they
Dan
are.
Siegel's, just to say, it wasn't my invention. This is Dan Siegel's. I borrowed it from him and I use it, but I found it was so helpful.
I want to let you know, as a personal parent, I happen to think many times when I'm doing certain things with my kids, like I see something my kids having a hard time and I'm trying to soothe them, like I'm thinking about that clearly because it's so clear. It's very interesting if you get it.
Yeah.
So the 4 S's are safety. Safety means that they know that they're not in danger from their parents. They know they're not in danger for anything. It means that they're in a safe environment. They know the father's not going to run after them with a bat. They know that they're not going to be publicly embarrassed in front of their friends. So have this safety. Security is very similar to safety, but I understand security means that more like the functionality of things are secure. They go to camp, they go to school. It's not that the father's going to beat them up, but it's more that things are working in a very functional, secure manner. And then the
Fixable.
third part is seen, right? The kid that goes through a hard day, the father gives them eye-to-eye contact. They talk about their problems. They see each other. You see that kid is different from the other kid. You're valuing who he is as his own, not, oh, I have 10 kids. It's 1, 2, number 7. Yeah, number 7. He is seen and he has that communication with you. And the last part, the soothe. Soothe, obviously, as a baby, we do 0 to 2, but the soothe that we're really referring to is when somebody's having a hard day, you give them a hug. They could feel like they could cry to you. You could be vulnerable with them, and they could just really release their frustration. Instead of punching a wall, they could go to their parent and feel the smoothness. And this is the ideal parenting that we all try to do. And Rabbi Russell really wrapped it up by saying, probably most parents fall into together of doing most of these things 70, 80% of the time. Nobody here is perfect. We all scrambled a kid once. And definitely when a kid, scribbled the name on the wall, or did something, we try, but this is what we try to do. But if we could try to have in mind to realize that we don't, we want, this is the goal of what we want to do. So if we do 70, 80% of it, we're very proud of it, and that's good. And then where we left off is we're really going to start off next time, is that even if we did everything 95%, even 100%, there's another factor that comes into these children and it comes into life. It's something called trauma. And the trauma is a very big word. And Rabbi Russell will dissect this word and everybody will understand what we're talking about. There's multiple different types of traumas. And when this trauma strikes, even though Allah has come if we didn't do the healthy parenting, how much severe effect trauma will have on an unhealthy child. But even with a healthy child that were brought up in 80% of everything we discussed, when that trauma hits, then we get, as parents, lost because we're doing everything good. We're, guidance, everything's smooth. The kid's going to school, he's going to school, he's functioning. And all of a sudden these behaviors start. So actually we start getting more into that. I'm going to say even regular, a little more that you said, not regular chinuch, we actually get into more stronger chinuch, more aggressive chinuch. Because the first reaction, our knee-jerk reaction is, if I'm really going to scream at him now, he's 15, he's stopped going to shul, I say, you better go to shul now. That's going to get him to go. And that's when this whole parsha starts really exploding, because it's like literally everything we built up in the first 13, 14, 15 years works against us because we start ripping it apart. So that's the recap that I understood in the short 2 hours we had.
Very good, excellent. Okay, so next time we'll take it, Mr. Shem. Within a month, we got to do this.
Then yeah, because it can be, somebody said that Rabbi Russell come back every night, but the truth is really, I don't want to come back every night, because if everybody hears the shir tonight, you could listen to it a few times, and Menachem, the other people, Menachem, before we send it to other shirim, they tell them to come on to part 2, they have to listen to part 1, otherwise they're going to jump into trauma. But this is the core of crisis chinuch, is regular chinuch.
Right.
Before you go, I want to give you a shkoyach. And the recap was amazing, Usha. Good job. I guess I get the Rebbe's, I get the Talmud. So Baruch Hashem, the Olam hopefully picked it up. And really what we're going to do till next time is to go out in the world and see where these things come up. All these ideas and the triggers and you say, "Oi, I did do right, didn't do right," and again, like we heard, there's no blaming anybody, and don't blame yourself. Don't be harsh on yourself. Nobody's perfect. We're just becoming aware what's going on, my surroundings, my kids, myself, and I think that's the most important. Even myself. How do I feel about myself, and how do I give it over to my kids? And there's so many adults that have to find those four S's just for themselves, so that they can slowly give it over. Emetz Hashem.
I
So
can just, Menachem, if I can just mention, if anyone who wants more information, I'm not looking just to plug my book, but Raising a Loving Family. If you haven't read it yet, can I
I'll
really
send out. Yeah, I'll send
strongly
out next
send
week.
it out? I strongly recommend. It has all these Yesodis. You know, I build these Yesodis in the book, and people tell me it's been extremely helpful for them. So that you can learn more about this in the book and on keshenafshi.org. All the drushes are there, or come to the conference.
Okay.
Everybody have a wonderful night. Rabbi Russell, have a wonderful morning. And
Thank you.
Anybody, again, if anybody is even 1% Negea, like struggling or anything, I'm gonna say this very nicely, you gotta be by Keshenafshi, because like everything we're gonna discuss, even with all 10 shiurim, it's still gonna be a tip of the iceberg. It's like, again, we could learn this in 6 hours and hopefully in all the shiurim, but again, it's just like I said, it takes a lifetime to master. It's not something that, even if you understand all the cognitive and you get all the tips and all the magic buttons, after all 10 hours and you get it, it's still, maybe you'll even get it, you're very intellectual, you'll get it intellectually, but it takes many, many, many hardships to get it in here. And that's what Keshenafshi helps more than all these logical speeches. So everybody have a wonderful night. Rabbi Russell, thank you again. We love you. You're the best. See you
Thank
next
you. Take care, my friend. Be well.